Back live tonight here on In Focus, and thanks for staying on. The High Court in Pretoria has set aside President Cyril Ramaphosa's decision to recognize Misuzulu kaZwelithini as the Amazulu king. It follows applications by the late monarch's sibling, Prince Mbonisi Zulu, as well as Misuzulu's half-brother, Prince Simakade Zulu. The applications were made to determine who the heir of the throne is. It instead sought relief to review, set aside a meeting held in May 2021 where the appointment was made. Judge Norman Davis ruled the process was flawed, unlawful and invalid. The matter has been remitted to President Cyril Ramaphosa to appoint an investigative committee into the matter. The president has also been slapped with a court order. All right, let's get reaction now from Royal House member Prince Thokozani Zulu. Mtwana, good evening. Siyabonga ubenathi namhlanje. The courts decided to tata le matter by nikeza president to decide on an investigation. What's your reaction?
Good evening, Mdlanyoka, and your audience at home. Our reaction as the Zulu royal family is that we've been vindicated, given the fact that at all material times we have stated that the process has been flawed, and the president bungled the process voluntarily to yield to a particular result.
The court's confining itself to really Section 8 of the Leadership Act, more than actually getting into the debate about who is the heir to the throne, saying that that would not be what this particular court would have been looking at.
Yes, definitely, Thabo, because king has never been appointed or identified by the courts. That is the jurisdiction of the Zulu royal family. In fact, it vindicates us in the sense that we wrote a letter of dispute to the president with the hope that the president would follow the prescripts of the law to cause an investigative committee to be formed. Now that the court has decided that the matter has to be determined in terms of Section 8, subsection 4 of the Traditional and Coastal Leadership Act favors us. In fact, that's what we had wanted to happen from inception.
So what does this trigger for yourselves in terms of what your expectations are now that the court has taken this matter or remitted the matter back to the president on the investigative committee? Yes.
Well, in fact, the decision of the president, of the judge, Judge Davis, is to the effect that Prince Misuzulu was unlawfully identified, and since the decision has been set aside, in terms of what our legal team prayed for was that a investigative committee be formed by the president. It also stipulated preconditions relating to the constitution or the right of the parties to have a view on the integrity of those who have been identified to constitute the committee, but also to say that now that the court has ruled in our favor, we expect the president to constitute the committee within the stipulated time as per the court order, but also that the powers of the committee are that it has to determine whether Prince Misuzulu was identified in terms of the customary law and custom, and if not, to indicate who ought to have been identified. And we are confident that the investigative committee will confirm our decision that as the royal family that Inkosi Ngonyama uZona Magwala, Isilo, Simakade kaZwelithini is indeed the rightful heir to the throne of the Zulu nation, and hence the king, or Isilo Samazulu. Yeah. Now, in terms of the act, once the report of the committee has been produced, subject to what we prayed for, that once the committee has been constituted, all parties be allowed to make both oral and written submissions to the committee. Yeah. And that before the committee finishes the president with the report, that parties will have to have sight of the report and comment thereon, and that is in terms of section 8, subsection 5. Yeah. Then the royal family would then be given an opportunity to view the report and comment thereon before the report is then reverted back to the president.
Donna, is your faction willing to abide by the outcomes of this investigative committee, whatever the outcome may be? I mean, because we are looking, of course, largely at the process of identification, and I gather it will evolve around the 3 meetings that could have taken place, one on the 5th of May, one on the 14th of May, I think another one on the 22nd of May, by which the other court has already pronounced, I suppose, on some of those meetings.
Well, in fact, I wouldn't like us to venture into Madondo judgment, because the decision of the court today nullifies the decision or the judgment handed down.
Not necessarily. The court saying that's not what they were asked to do. They are not asked to determine the outcomes of that particular court process.
Yes, it nullifies it in the sense that the court has ruled contrary to what Madondo had ruled on, and in fact has reverted the matter back to the royal family. And now, in practical terms, it means that the investigative committee will look into all the relevant meetings, which in fact it's more than 3 meetings combined, and then determine whether the decision by in fact, maybe to start by stating that we are not a faction. We are members of the Zulu royal family who ought to have been allowed to identify an heir. Now, we are confident that given the credentials of all the meetings that identified His Majesty King Simakade kaZwelithini were constituted, we will in fact emerge victorious.
In terms of then the investigation, what is it that you think will be revealed that would be different to what the president, I suppose, would have received from the panel that initially got everybody to sit around the table and give their side of the story, so to speak?
In fact, we will recall that one of the reasons why we approached the court is that the president disregarded the findings of the panel, the mediation panel, constituted by himself, and decided to deal with the matter in a manner that is ultra vires, in the sense that he did not consider the prescripts of the law. In fact, even the report, the mediation panel report itself, stated that the president had to constitute an investigative committee. Now, our view is that a fair process will then be initiated. It's not that we are expecting something different. The president never ever considered the report of the mediation panel, and that becomes one of the flaws of the president's decision.
I know you are saying you're not a faction, you're one part of the royal family, but as we sit today, you yourself have said you recognize Prince Simakade as Isilo. Well, there is, of course, those who are saying Prince Misuzulu is the king of the Zulu nation. What is going to happen today following this court judgment on that matter? Yes,
with respect to that matter, we, in fact, when His Majesty the King addressed us this afternoon, the King expressly expressed the view that the King appreciates the fact that those who emerge victorious in any contested process have a responsibility to extend a hand to those who have not been favored by the process. And it is the responsibility and the will of His Majesty the King, King Simakade, kaZwelithini, to extend a hand to those who have not been favored by the process, to ensure that the dignity of the Zulu royal family is redeemed, to ensure that the Zulu royal family becomes united once again.
Is the Prince planning to move into the royal palace now? Is he preparing to do that?
Well, in fact, Thabo, that's a sore question to the Zulu royal family, because you'll recall that His Majesty the King had been occupying the palace of Enyogeni, and he was kicked out by the attempt of the SIU members who were sent by government to assassinate him.
So at this point, he will not be reoccupying that palace?
Well, that will become the decision of the royal family, having regard to the security of the king.
All right. Appreciate your time. Ndwana, thank you very much for coming on. That's Prince Thokozani Zulu there.